Good evening, everyone. So we are here on Zoom as well as live on Instagram. So wherever you're joining, a very warm welcome to all of you for today's session on ancestral healing and wisdom to heal our lives. So today's session will be very interactive. First, I'm going to be sharing with all of you about what is ancestral healing, why is it relevant, how is it connected with us, how does it impact us, and how can we use it to create the lives that we desire or release some of the blockages that are holding us back in our lives. And then for all of you who are joining on Instagram, please keep a paper and pen with you as well, because we're going to be doing some inner work today and work with our ancestors as well. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, as well as towards the end, if there's time, I'll unmute you or you can join on Instagram and ask any questions that you have. So what is ancestral healing? So ancestral healing is a concept which has been around for many centuries, especially in our heritage. It has always been looked upon to we first pray to our ancestors before we begin anything auspicious. However, in younger generations, this concept has kind of gotten lost somewhere in the process. However, we are not aware of how closely it connects with our actual issues in our life. How the things that maybe our great-grandparents or grandparents or parents experience could still be impacting us in our lives in the form of relationship patterns or money patterns or career, job, health issues, and all the other such issues in our life. So one very interesting term that was coined by Sigmund Freud was he identified something called the traumatic reenactment or the repetition compulsion. So this is the tendency of our unconscious mind which attempts to replay what was unresolved in the past so that we can get it right. So this is the way our unconscious mind is replaying certain things which have been genetically stored in our minds, bodies, till it is resolved. So for example, if maybe our great-grandparents or grandparents experience some kind of a traumatic event. Maybe they went through a genocide where they lost their family members, or they experienced witnessing a murder or escaped a murder, or went through something, maybe drowning in water or being traumatized with some event or some major fight at home that really impacted them. So these are the traumas could be in any form. They could be something really big, or even day-to-day things could be traumatic. So when that trauma remains unresolved, so it is passed on through our genes. So what happens is it's actually been scientifically studied now that when what our grandmother lived, we have also experienced in our lives, because the moment your grandmother conceived your mother, when you were a fetus, a woman's fetus has all the eggs that she's ever going to produce in her entire lifetime. So when your mother was a fetus in her grandmother's womb, you have been present in their body since then. So if you think about it, you've actually experienced everything that your grandmother experienced. It's stored in your cells. It's all those memories are there in you as well. So that is how closely everything is stored, whether, any kind of trauma, hurt, pain, suffering, disease, everything is stored in our bodies and minds. However, it's not like that we are doomed to live with this. We can actually heal it. And now that we're becoming aware of this concept of ancestral healing, we can actually use this opportunity to be the ones who resolve and heal this trauma in our ancestral lineage line. And this is a great service that we would be doing to our entire families. And this in-depth work that really began for me was so today Simran is also here. Hi, Simran. So this was a show that I recently shared with all of you in WhatsApp groups, which she actually shared with me, which is called Another Self. So this show on Netflix very beautifully captures how this ancestral healing has been affecting us. And all of you can also read a book called It Did Not Start With You. So this book further goes on to share a lot of in-depth research that has happened in this field and in all the ways, that you can actually change these patterns. And today we'll also be doing a small exercise on ancestral healing. So, okay, do we have some questions here? Okay, so somebody has asked, so this issues can only be from a mother's side. No, so it can actually be from both sides because the mother is actually giving birth to the boys as well. So the genes, the same cellular code is actually getting passed on to the men also, who are taking birth. So it's not just from a mother's side, it's from all sides because we are an amalgamation of a father and mother. We carry their DNA, both of their DNAs. So that is why it can be from either of the sides. So now, so what we're first going to be doing is we're going to create something called a genogram. Genogram. So genogram is a map that we're going to create today about your ancestral lineage and the traumas that were suffered or they experienced in their lifetimes. So what we're going to be, so Aarti is asking, will this therapy cure my cousin and siblings also? Yes. So the interesting part is that when we are going to be healing these ancestral patterns in our cells, we are actually releasing them from the entire ancestral line as well as our family members. So we have this opportunity to heal this, not just in ourselves, but everyone. So it's like recently I was working with a few clients, and coincidentally, there was a lot of ancestral work that we did in the last 1 week. So in one of the clients that I was working with, so her daughter, she herself and her mother had the exact same patterns in relationships. So there was this pattern of not being heard, never being heard by the opposite sex or the family members. So this pattern, which had actually started with the mother, then to the daughter, and then to her daughter. So this actually, so what was happening was the intensity of that trauma was reducing, but it was still continuing in different proportions. So for the, so let's call her the grandmother. So the grandmother, it was happening with respect to her husband, her in-laws, and everyone. Then for her daughter, she was experiencing this predominantly with her husband in a great magnitude, where there was a lot of anger for not being heard, for not being respected, for not being cared for, loved, and passed on to the daughter who is in her 20s. She was experiencing this with her entire family, the feeling of not being heard. So the pattern keeps replaying till somebody takes the opportunity to resolve it and heal it. And there are many ways that can be used to heal these patterns. So like in the show Another Self, the way they had shown was the family constellation therapy, which is a beautiful way to heal ancestral traumas. So today, the work that we'll be doing, it's going to be through a genogram. And then, so I also use faster EFT with a lot of my clients to heal ancestral trauma. So today I was working with a client who has eye issues, who has a problem with her eyes, which is going terminally towards blindness. And it turned out that her mother had the cancer of the eye when she was in her 50s. Her father had turned blind in her 80s. Her grandfather, her paternal grandfather, had also turned blind in her 80s. So the pattern of blindness or something happening with the eyes was running in the entire family tree. So when we started resolving certain issues, it brought to light we had to re-imprint all the patterns, all that they experienced, their traumas. So we began healing from there, then going on to healing her traumas as well. And that was creating such a profound impact in her life. So also many times what happens is many diseases are actually created for us to be able to give attention to some trauma that needs healing. So like in the case of the author of this book, it did not start with you. So in this, the author shared a story where he himself was going towards terminal blindness. And when he started exploring and healing, so his trauma was coming from his parents. So when he started addressing his trauma, which was not related to blindness at all, it's not necessarily always the direct pattern. So when he started resolving some of the issues with his mother, he was not very connected with his mother because of some traumas that had happened during the delivery, during his birth, and also immediately after 2 years of his birth. So those traumas had completely severed his relationship with his mother. And when he went on to heal that, his eyesight completely recovered. So it is so interesting when we go on to do these, and how terminally ill diseases can also be reversed through this. That's how profound this is. So there are many stories that I can share with you. If there's time in the end, I'll share more such stories about healing and miraculous recoveries through ancestral healing. But for now, let's go on to do some inner work. Okay, let's work on our ancestral family trees. So what you have to do is take a paper and pen. And on this, we're going to draw a family tree. So we're going to work with the 3 generations. So yourself, your parents, and your grandparents. Okay, so in this, you're going to create the first line will be the grandparents. Okay, so it will be the paternal grandparents, grandfather, grandmother, and the maternal grandparents, grandfather, grandmother. And so all of these will be in circles. And then under each of the grandparents, for example, your father, and on the other side, your mother and their siblings. So just put a family chart in that way. Okay, let me see if I can show you. Okay, let me just screen share so that you can get an idea. Okay, so can all of you on Zoom see this? So first line is going to be the grandparents. So in this, if you see on top, the women have been denoted with a circle and the males are denoted with a square. And next to each of the person is written the traumas that they suffered. So this is how you can go on to create this chart. It need not be exactly like that. You can have in the form of a tree, you can have in the form of a triangle, whatever you feel like. So those of you who are on Instagram, so the tree will, how the tree would look like is, so for those of you who are on Zoom, this has 4 generations actually, but we can do just 3 generations today: your generation, your parents, and your grandparents. So the first line would be the paternal grandparents and the maternal grandparents. Under that, your parents and their siblings. And then they join together into you and your siblings. So these would be the 3 layers that have to be created.
We have to write their traumas, what they have gone through.
Yes. So whatever you know of, any pains and difficulties that they went through. For example, you know, mothers have normally experienced a lot of feelings of rejection, being in their married life because of patriarchy. Certain patterns have been there. So whatever you know about your mother, what she experienced, maybe your mother lived in a joint family and how was she treated, how did she feel surrounded by everyone, were there feelings of jealousy, were there feelings of neglect, were there feelings of anger. So you can just write all of that.
Oh, got it.
So let's take 5 minutes to write down whatever you can. And this practice you can do later on also. You can ask your parents, your grandparents these questions, and then you can do even more deeper work. So you can mention, so when we do a full family tree, we do mention our parents, siblings as well. But for now, if you want to keep it simple, you can just write your parents as well, or maybe do the siblings later.
Git, this would need some time to work on it. Do you think we will be able to go through the meditation you do without completing this right now?
So even if you are able to write maybe one person, then you can work on that person today, because anyways we won't be able to cover every person today.
Sure.
So that ways you can later on do it for other people as well.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So basically, I missed because I joined 5 minutes late. So I wanted to know the purpose of doing this.
So this is a genogram that we are creating to be able to heal the ancestors.
Okay.
Because all the patterns that we are experiencing are also coming from our ancestors. So many times when we don't find any immediate cause of our own issues in our lives. So as you're writing, I'll share a few stories with you so that you will be able to connect more with things. So there was this person, a client who had been, from the time she was born, she had very depressive thoughts. She was in her late 30s, never married, would not even go out of the house, and always had this feeling of just dying, like she just wanted to die. And she even attempted suicides many times, but there was no cause that could be found. So when the digging began into, where about her parents, about her grandparents, so it turned out that her mother, her grandmother, was the one who had escaped from the concentration camps that had happened in Germany. So her entire family had perished in those concentration camps, and she was the only one who had escaped. And because of that, she had a big guilt for having survived, and she felt very guilty about that. So that is why that grandmother's guilt this granddaughter was carrying. And because of that, she had this constant need to just kill herself, just die, because she felt she did not deserve to live. And she also had this thing of, being incinerated, which was what had actually happened to her grandmother's family members. So this is how some of the patterns show up in our lives.
And how this impact our like oneself as we are doing this genogram to the ancestors, because we are writing the patterns what we observe in our parents and
Yeah.
grandparents. How this impact, are we going to, because I saw that movie when you were talking about another self in June. So I saw definitely that movie.
So what is the actual progression which happens is, when I work one-on-one with somebody, or when I work in a workshop. So what happens is we go in the reverse direction. We first identify what is the problem that you're facing in your life. Okay, so suppose the problem is that I feel very rejected. I always feel, like I'm out of place. I feel unsafe. So when we start working on that, we work on the patterns from the current lifetime. Then we also work on when did your mother or father or your grandparents have that pattern where they felt really unsafe, where they felt rejected, where they felt they were not good enough. So that is, so when we identify that key sentence that I am not good enough, or everyone rejects me. So then when we trace it back to our ancestors, we are actually healing that not just in us, but in everyone. Then the complete work is done. Then that pattern is gone from us as well. We are completely free of it.
Hi, Geetika ji. So I wanted to ask, we are supposed to write down the traumatic events in each of our ancestors' lives or patterns, because I've hardly interacted with my dadi because she died when I was 3, and Nana ji died like even before that, like when my mom was 7 or 8. So how do I, identify their lives?
So
And
talk to your parents. What they know about their parents' lives. So from that, you will be able to get to know.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That how did they feel. So your parents might not be able to tell you the patterns, of course. That's for you to discover. They might say that they never got along with each other, there were a lot of fights between both of them, and then you have to be able to decipher those patterns as you're asking them questions.
Okay, so we're supposed to write the traumatic events as well as the patterns that they might have faced.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any questions on Instagram? If there's anything, please feel free to ask. So 2 more minutes. Once you're done with your genogram, just mention in the chat that I'm done, I've completed. So that we'll go into the meditation next.
I also wanted to ask, like you said that from my maternal grandma side, when she would have conceived my mother, the trauma that she would have faced would have been transferred to me as well. But then when I was making the genogram, I realized that my grandmother on paternal side as well, like both my grandmothers probably faced a lot of trauma. And especially my paternal grandmother, she faced a lot of trauma and she died out of trauma as well. So how did that trauma come into my life? Because my dad was already 20 by then, by the time, she would have faced that trauma. And how would that have happened?
So it's not just, at the time of birth itself, but we are all connected. The family tree is connected through cords, invisible cords, life force cords that connect the family, the soul family that we are. So the things that are experienced are also the memories that are replaying in us. So there are shared memories that we are experiencing with them. So that is how this affects not just because of birth, but overall other experiences as well. So that is how the genetic mode is all connected with each other. And even what your grandmother went through is not necessarily something that happened in an isolation in that period. What she experienced could also be coming from the past. So that is how it's stored in the cellular line. And many times it also happens, it's not necessary that we'll experience every trauma that every person went through. So it's interesting how, but that is something which has not been found even through research, that what makes it get activated in one person and not in any other. So suppose there is a cancer code that was there in your grandparents, so that lies dormant. It could lie dormant inside us for many generations, and maybe in one person it gets activated. So that research has not been able to identify that why and in which person it gets activated. But now that we understand how diseases are formed in our body, through different emotional saturation, when different emotions are stuck in our body, different diseases are caused from that. So that leads to the activation of different dormant codes in our bodies, cells. So can this pattern be personality influence? What do you mean? Could you explain your question?
Hi. Now, as we have born by seeing our parents around, probably somehow we are influenced with their personalities, and probably which you are talking about a pattern. Can those be those personality influenced by them, like how they react on a particular kind of a situation? Probably, my dad reacted in some way, and I got influenced. I should also react in the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. So the personality influence is definitely something, when we say that we work in this lifetime also. So when we go back and work on the patterns in this lifetime, we're actually looking at all our conditionings in our childhood, the things we saw, the things we experienced, how they impacted us, the beliefs we created from them.
Exactly.
So all of that definitely creates that. And this is the unseen things actually. But both of that influences us.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right. So now let's get ready. So you can keep your paper, pens aside and just get comfortable so that we are going to go into a healing meditation now. You can have your back supported. So when you support your back on a chair, so your spine represents your ancestors. So that's why connecting your back to the chair in an upright position is actually very good for ancestral healing, any meditation that you're doing. And if you feel like you can keep your feet on the ground, if you keep your feet on the ground, that connects us to Mother Earth. But if you want, you can keep them folded as well, whatever feels comfortable. And now gently close your eyes when you're ready and take deep cleansing breaths, breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your mouth. And now fold your hands, and we're going to invite our ancestors to create a circle around us, to surround us. As we begin this process, and give us their permission and blessings to proceed with this. You can also invoke any ascended masters, any guides, any god that you worship, and you can have them be present here in this moment, guiding over this process for what is best and highest for you, your family, and ancestors. And now, I want you to invite, as you are in the center of this circle, invite the first person from this circle to step inside the circle and be in front of you. You could be sitting or you could be standing facing each other. And just notice, who is that person from your ancestral circle who comes and stands in front of you? And now, without the need for any words, allow them to share the pains, any traumas that they suffered. Allow them to open their heart and share those emotions. And you can give yourself permission to feel what they experienced, yet be anchored and grounded at all times. Let your heart open to feel the emotions that they experienced without any judgments, without any advice. Just be there present. And as you're doing this, keep your head bowed before them and breathe through your open mouth. All the emotions that are arising, feel them, process them, and release them through your mouth, through your breath. And as this person is sharing their heart with you, tell them that you respect them and everything that happened to them, and that they would never be forgotten, and they are always remembered with love. And knowing that whatever they did at that time was the best they could with the understanding that they had at that time. And when you feel the emotions getting lighter, getting emptier, fully released, you see a beautiful light of love flowing between your hearts. This light is filled with beautiful colors, stars, glitter, lighting up the entire being of the person in front of you and filling you up with this light. And say to them, I love you. Thank you for everything that you've done. Because of you, I'm here where I am today. And I bow down to your wisdom. And see the ancestors smiling, becoming bigger, bigger with shining light, and blessing you. And as they're becoming bigger and bigger in this light, they shower this light of love on the entire circle of ancestral lineage. And the entire circle is illuminated with the light of love. And your hearts are expanding, filled with this love, this light, which heals everything, what you know, what you don't know, from these lifetimes, from past lifetimes, parallel lifetimes, future lifetimes, everything being transmuted in this light of love. And they're blessing you to have a full life. And with these blessings, your physical body is changing with this light. The cells in your body are lighting up. And any little bit, anything left in any cell of your body is being released through your mouth, through your out breath. And then when you're completely, fully lit up, the entire circle, including the ancestor in front of you, are going to merge into your heart. And you become a light being, illuminated, living your fullest life, activated to the highest in you, blessed and forever taken care of. And their wisdom is always available to you. All you have to do is ask. And when they're fully merged into the heart, into the light, thank them. Thank your ascended masters, your guides. And then slowly start bringing yourself back to the here and now. Take your time, anchoring yourself in your breath. And slowly open your eyes when all parts of you are integrated, whole and complete. All your energy bodies are balanced and in harmony. And then rub your palms, place them on your head, on your face, and your whole body. The loving touch. You can have some water. How is everyone feeling? And if you had any experience, if you saw anything, you can unmute yourself and share or mention in the chat.
Good experience, of course. I could actually felt all of my ancestors, all of my grandparents, all four of them,
Wow.
including my chacha, and like it was amazing.
Oh, wow.
And I actually, when you said that, just call one of them, I actually felt that he was telling me whatever, just keep going to my mind, trying to tell me that just be calm and relaxed. So it was a good message actually I received.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's not just the words, it's actually the energy that they transmit in you is very powerful. Words are very limited actually, they can't take in the entire magnitude of what the gifts that they give us come in the form of energy and blessings.
So that was a good experience. Actually, when I bow down, I actually felt that he was putting his hand over me. Really feel that.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Wonderful.
For me, it's the first time this ancestral healing I have done. Wonderful experience.
Yeah, yeah. It's very profound.
Very,
Yes. Beautiful. And you can also write your experience in your journal or anywhere that you store your experiences. And how's everyone else feeling? Is everyone back in the here and now? Just mention in the chat if you're back from the meditation.
it's the first time I connected with my grandmother, my paternal grandmother. And I realized that I just knew that she had a lot of struggle. And somewhere or the other, I had connected with it so much that it was all suppressed inside me. And when I did the meditation, I cried a lot. And in like after today, I could connect with her more happily than, just pity her or feel sad for her. And I just realized that she did her best and whatever she could that time. So in that way, I feel a lot lighter, and I connected with her on a very, on a very heart to heart basis today, and I cried a lot.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Geetika.
Wonderful. So I hope everyone is back. You're feeling comfortable. If anyone has any discomfort, please let me know. And so we'll end the session for today. So today we could do a little bit of a glimpse of ancestral healing. So if you would like to do deeper ancestral work, we can work one-on-one. I do one-on-one sessions. I also have a full moon circle coming up on 9 September, in which we'll be going much deeper into the mother wound healing and the healing of the mother's ancestral line. So that is going to be very powerful. And if you would like to register for that, the links are in the WhatsApp group. You can also DM me for the link if you're not part of the group. And you can also find it on Instagram in my bio. So thank you everyone for joining in. Have a great night and a wonderful week ahead. Bye.
Thank you, Geet.
Thank you.
Welcome.